Hi everyone, Julia here, recording this December 2nd, 2022. This is a summary of the Archaix Live, which was broadcast on November 30th, 2022. Entitled, Leaving November Behind, End of the Month Q&A. Jason announces that he'll have a live Q&A on the last day of every month. He says that there will be slavery in many forms after 2052, and that his findings lead him to believe that future errants aren't participating anymore by that time. He surmises that after 2046, it's no longer necessary for the elect to be here, as they have matured enough, and that only 144,000 will remain, giving their testimony for 3.5 years, after which they will exit the simulacrum. Jason teaches that the 144,000 will be invincible and that we are not here to change the world, but to pass through it. He briefly discusses the need for the armor or the dressing of the Great Pyramid with white limestone blocks, making it ready for the capstone, and how 1902 was the beginning of the harvest, with 2106 being 6,000 years since mankind had to start over. Jason discusses how he views NPCs, non-player characters, as backdrop phenomena, taking very little processing power, making the collective easier to control. He says that NPCs are also phenomena often used to jazz things up, as in the movie The Adjustment Bureau. Jason states that AIX loves NPCs, potentially using NPC phenomena to block potential breakthroughs or epiphanies, but that the simulacrum doesn't use NPCs for manipulation. He teaches that we must forcefully create our own life and world, being mindful of our thoughts. Jason says that Mary Magdalene, along with the historical figure Jesus, both of their existences cannot be proven via historical text, as all mentions are in retrospect. And he says that that's the same problem with the Gospels, which come from the Q documents, with the book of John coming from different Gnostic sources. He explains in the last 400 years it's been pushed that books of the Bible are of different ages, and that the Old Testament was produced before Jesus' time. But that's not the case. Jason teaches that God is real, but that the existence of a historical Jesus and Mary cannot be proven, and that he doesn't think that the Gospels are historical, but that they are actually a play. He goes on to say that the teachings of Jesus are superb, but that the sacrifice story is BS, trying to imply that humans are wicked and guilty. He says that this is a simulation used by us to grow, learn, and gain our power needed for our new avatars, and that most will not pass through because they'll stay in the simulacrum, and that the simulacrum isn't going anywhere. In answer to my comment about 2178 being the collapse of the simulacrum, Jason wrote that the collapse of the program is how many will actually exit, and that the system will reboot and the historical narrative will begin again. He stated that we are confined by calendars and that their collapse will free us, and that he doesn't believe in hell or the annihilation of souls, but that he's totally on board with a looping of the system to give those within another shot. Jason touches on how he thinks that the chief cornerstone is the architect that helped build all simulacrums, and that the Sphinx is actually a dog. He suggests that we're witnessing the last days where knowledge is increased, with people running to and fro, stating that for thousands of years people stayed in their villages, but since the 1800s, knowledge has been increasing. Jason postulates that manipulation of our individual timelines is possible, that in the personal we can manipulate reality, but that the collective reality is fixed. He warns that we can steal others' lives intentionally by being a beacon where light goes to, but that errants complement each other. Jason explains that he lives life as a prayer, that his prayers are his actions going in the direction that his spirit wants to go. He reminds how Jesus rebuked others for giving him credit, pointing out that the kingdom of God is within you. He teaches that faith, not Jesus, healed people. He teaches that prayer is a trap and that begging doesn't work. He says, act as if it is, not ask. He points out that you're either part of the Exodus or you're in Egypt, which refers to being part of Armageddon. He says that the simulacrum is neutral and that it will reflect back guilt and powerlessness, and that religion is a spiritual slave cycle. When asked about as above, so below, Jason says that it's less about heaven above, earth below, and more about as is spirit, so is physical, which leads to the connection between spirit and matter. He stresses that imagination, intuition, and empathy are the main three qualifiers for spiritual people who notice and seize opportunity, which the collective is typically blind to. Jason teaches that the 144,000 will have a special purpose after the 7 seals are broken, and that they will give testimony to those here for Armageddon. He shares that he thinks that after 6,000 years the simulacrum starts over, and points out that all the anomalies due to timeline inconsistencies mean that it must be a construct, but that we can't prove it while we're in it. He says that the central nervous system jacks us into the programming, allowing spiritual beings to have a very unique experience, and that we're confined by the calendars that we keep, except for errants. He teaches that the collective are trapped in a loop with the same backdrop, just different stages, with each closing of the stage curtain being a reset. Jason goes into how recorded history only goes back about 6,000 years, and that the much older references by popular researchers is illogical and unverifiable. He points out how they focus on events like the Ice Age, but not on the Jungle Age, i.e. the Vapor Canopy Age. He argues that Graham Hancock and the like appear to be against the mainstream narrative, but actually assist in perpetrating the evolution lie, while denying that humans were advanced in the past. He points out that forbidden archaeology is found everywhere, and that what we were told doesn't line up with what is. Jason says that meditation is up to the personal, that when he tries, he has a sensation of motion, that now he knows that this is because the thought field is moving and can take you away. He says that if that's the objective, then meditation is beneficial. He suggests that simultaneous inventions are due to more than one person tapping into the same thought field. Jason says that spirit creates emotion, not hormones, and that he has always gotten lost in the thought field, but he thinks that meditation can be beneficial. And he says that it's different for everyone. He announces that he'll do a podcast with Square Peg Divergent, discussing isometric analysis methods. Jason says that the FTX was a scam from the beginning, and that the fall of the Democrats is happening now. He says that the media is proof, with poor ratings and popular icons losing their jobs and shows. He says that we're in the pendulum swing now, and that predictions are unfolding. He suggests that the return of nationalism to China will make things worse than they are currently, but not to worry about Russia or China invading the world, that it's all fear-mongering. Jason says that you would reach the same conclusions if you follow his isometric analysis methods. Jason quotes C.W. Dalton, stating that the meaning of life is living. He emphasizes his view that we're immortals who volunteered, knowing of the challenges, including not being able to leave until a certain date. He says that we go through many life sims for the embetterment of our souls, and how he feels that we must have more than one life to be judged fairly. Jason teaches that our bodies are just genetic coding, fantastically built to house an immortal soul where we can develop our personality. He says that once you have been every race and class in both sexes, that then your immortal personality is finally developed and ready for judgment. He reminds that this is a phantom world based on a real world. He discusses how the phoenix was changed into an eagle in 1902 and postulates that the double-headed phoenix perhaps represented West and East Rome. Jason reviews how all ancient calendars are started because of the Nemesis cataclysm, and that it's all a simulation with a series of coding protocols all running together, a series of cataclysmic resets or edits. He states that people at the time of resets knew something major happened, but usually just eventually carried on with life. Jason says that he thinks 1902 must have been a really bizarre year, and that in the 1800s something major took place, like significant programming changes. He emphasizes that all calendars are evidence that we're running a simulation to figure out how to survive in different biospheres, and that all calendars are attached to the moon and the sun appearing. He again points out that we're in a construct that mimics the outside world, where there's a real solar system. He again emphasizes that the sky is simulated to make us think we're on a globe, but that it's actually a holofield. He mentions CGI and theorizes that the lunar wave is everywhere in the stellosphere, not just the moon. He says that if you think it's all physical, then the simulacrum will oblige to make you believe that. He goes into how there is a real system out there and we're trying to survive the Nemesis event, which may not have happened, including all of history. He teaches that the threats we face are all simulated because the Creator wouldn't let us face real danger. Jason says that he's not on board with channeling because it can't be verified, and that Archaix data can be verified with a calculator. He suggests taking notes on channelers' predictions and keeping a track record. He mentions how each tarot card has multiple meanings and that what is presented is entirely subjective. He goes on to say how the Mandela effect, synchronicities, and deja vu are all edits in the program where reality tunnels coalesce. He says that sometimes our old self binds with our new self, but that the technology is too advanced to comprehend. He announces that Elon Musk admitted that artificial intelligence is not really intelligent. He says that we are not in a holding pattern with respect to current events, that we're in a pendulum swing now, heading to the right. He reviews how, being raised Southern Baptist, he set out to prove the Bible is true, only to discover that we're in a simulation. He shares that the story of Jacob's ladder comes from the Egyptian ladder of Set story, and that the story was then presented through a Jewish filter. Jason explains that nature is all simulated, but not everyone will be convinced because it's all subjective. He speculates that eternal creations always need more simulacrum experiences in order to grow and explore. He says that maybe mammal souls eventually make it to our level, and that the next sim may be totally different. Jason speculates that the Creator enjoys creation, and that maybe each simulacrum gets a personality to tend to it, such as Buddha, Enki, Enoch, Jesus, etc. He states that all calendars being made in retrospect indicates that this is a construction. He ends by pointing out that we all have free will in the personal, but that in the collective, all choice is part of the construct. So thank you for listening, and I hope you have a good morning, afternoon, or evening wherever you are. Remember to stay focused on what you want and help others if you can. And please subscribe and share. Ciao, ciao.